William and his men landed on the South English coast near the town of Hastings. Harold and his army raced to meet them. The English army lined up on top of Senlac Hill. At the front, the Saxon thanes locked their great round shields together to form a wall. A wall of shields would protect the English army, making it hard for the Norman soldiers to attack them. Behind the thanes were the housecarls. Each housecarl had a mighty two-handed axe that he could swing with such deadly force it would cut a man or even a horse in half. From the top of the hill, the English army could get a good view of every move the Norman army made, meaning they couldn't be surprised. King Harold, standing in the middle of his mighty army, axe at the ready, was pretty confident he would win and keep the crown of England. At the bottom of the hill, William had lined up an army that was smaller than Harold's. You'd think that this would have meant the English would have had an easy win over the Normans, but William's army had a few big advantages over the English. For starters, William had brought lots of archers with him, while the English only had rocks and axes to throw down on the Normans as they came up the hill. Secondly, most importantly, the Norman army had a couple of thousand knights in it, men who were basically full-time, well-trained warriors who fought on horseback, while the English all fought on foot. The Norman knights were the best, toughest, scariest fighters in Europe. The battle raged all day, from early in the morning until it got dark. Again and again, the Norman foot soldiers and knights charged up the hill on the attack. In between the charges, the Norman archers fired arrow after arrow over the English shield wall, killing the men behind. Near the end of the day, his brothers dead and the battle nearly lost, King Harold himself was hit, in the eye, by a Norman arrow. 4 knights cut him down and the battle was over. William had won, but the cost had been huge. 10,000 men from both sides were dead. 80% of the Saxon thanes were gone. England now belonged, lock, stock and barrel, to the French-speaking Viking knights from Normandy. Well, things were pretty bad for the old Saxon thanes, but what difference did the conquest of England make to the average people like our serf here? Well, he still didn't own anything much, that hadn't changed. He still had to pay tax and work for the local lord to pay his rent, so things hadn't changed much in that regard either. So the question is, had his life changed at all? Well, what do you think? I think things had changed for him in some pretty big ways. Imagine you're an English peasant. Your lord used to be a Saxon thane. He spoke the same language as you and he shared the same culture as you. Now he's dead, killed at Hastings. Your new lord is a Norman knight, a guy who speaks French and has no interest in learning English. He shaves the back of his head and doesn't even have a moustache. Everything about him is different from you and your old lord. And because he's the boss, it's you that has to change, not him. The single biggest thing that changed in England was the English language. The English that was spoken in Anglo-Saxon times would sound like a foreign language to you or me. And it took 300 years of Norman kings speaking French to turn Old English into a language you and I would understand today, Middle English, the language of Shakespeare. Now, you probably use a whole lot of Norman French words every day without even realising it. Words like cabbage, catch, pocket, fork, garden. There's a whole lot more, too many to list here. So, there you have it. The story of 1066, the Battle of Hastings and the Bayeux Tapestry that was made to record the conquest of England.